What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Bear With Us podcast. We have a full
That's like a 3 out of 10 entrance. I don't like it.
Come on.
Keep going.
We have a full house today. Myself, Frank, is here, joined with Jack and Naz. Fellas, not much is going on in the Bears kingdom. So actually, today's episode is going to be about the war in the Middle East, Israel-Palestine. We're going to touch on the Iowa caucus.
Listen. You just lost about 50% of
so many clicks away.
They're like, all right, no, out.
Listen,
I'm out.
Fellas, we missed last week, some scheduling conflicts. We have a ton to talk about.
Hold on. Real quick, I think we planned this perfectly because, we could have talked about how the Bears got their fucking asses kicked by the Packers again. Or we could have waited to see what happened with the coaching, to see who stayed, to see who left. We got news about some offensive coordinator interviews going, which I think is really interesting for us to talk about. And Caleb Williams has declared for the NFL draft, so now we can officially talk about the realistic possibility of him being a Chicago Bear. We don't do anything on accident, all right? This is all planned out. Professional podcasting, all right?
You're right. You're absolutely right. It wasn't my wife's birthday last week, and that's not why we took off on Tuesday.
Nope.
So listen, fellas. I think we dive right in. I think the first topic at hand here is the firing of Luke Getsy, which is he's the fall guy. I think rightfully so here. And then the Bears retaining Matt Eberflus. I feel like it's a convoluted conversation. I don't know if we can have one without the other, but Naz, we can start with you. What were the thoughts, man? Getsy gone, Eberflus back. How was Naz feeling the next day?
When Getsy was gone, to quote my buddy Frank, I had said, "Praise Jesus."
Can't get him to stop talking about Jesus.
Like your boy Jesus in the house. That was like the bare minimum for me. If you're looking at it from a polls perspective, I guess some continuity isn't the worst thing. We've done it the way where we fired coaches after 2 years. We've done it all sorts of ways. Who knows if it's correct? It's really about where we go forward with this, who's the next play caller for this team, and how we build out the coaching staff, and whether or not we decide to take Caleb at 1.
Jackie, thoughts?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Naz. Bare minimum was that Getsy was gone. I think Bears fandom sort of started to embrace the idea that Eberflus was going to be back, especially towards the end of the season with the little run that they went on. And then the Packers game hit, and things, as they do in Chicago, turned very quickly. And I think a lot of people were ready for changes, and it didn't happen. I'm not obviously thrilled that Getsy is gone, thrilled that there is some level of competence that we were all seeing the same thing in regards to how this offense was operating. Ryan Poles wasn't like, it'll be fine. Consistency for consistency's sake. We've seen a lot of that in Chicago. But it was hard to argue the idea that Eberflus should be gone as well. I think there was definitely room for that argument, right? That he could potentially be brought back and it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, which I kind of hate that that's still the bar for the Chicago Bears right now, because again, now you're starting to get those similar questions that we have seen over the last decade now with the amount of coaching changes the Bears have had, where it's a solid head coach, maybe even a little bit below solid, but a guy that you feel like you can build something with. And he's going into sort of like this lame duck situation, and now it's kind of bringing up the questions of the quarterback status. We haven't seen an extension for Matt Eberflus yet, so for all intents and purposes, on January 16th, he's could be very well gone next year, and they could be looking for another head coach. But I think we can all agree that the options available to the Bears at the head coaching position, I don't think are as strong as they have been in previous years. So unless you feel like you were going to sort of pull out the ace in the hole and get a Jim Harbaugh, which he could go to the Chargers, he could very well go right back to Michigan. unless you felt like that was going to happen, I kind of always felt like Matt Eberflus was going to be brought back. And I like the options they have at offensive coordinator, which I know we want to talk about. So before we do that, Frank, how are you feeling about Getsy gone, Eberflus back?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much left to be said about Getsy being gone. We saw this midway through year one, is that the scheme was just inept, and it like people wanted to throw him a bone, and maybe we did at times as well. Obviously, Dante Pettis was your wide receiver, won some games, EQ and N'Keal Harry. I get you weren't working with, a full deck of cards, but the problem is we consistently saw things that remained even when you had a better wide receiver room, a better offensive line. We saw it again in Week 18. You have Trent Taylor one-on-one blocking a defensive end, and things like that were happening nonstop. And the one thing that it finally, and honestly, it should have clicked with me a lot earlier with Getsy's scheme, is the blitz pickup, Justin's recognition of it sometimes, the center's recognition of it sometimes, got really good. Like, they picked up blitzes pretty well, pretty consistently. But the reason that the Packers in particular, and there were other teams, like I forgot who it was last year that just absolutely unpants this offense. As soon as stunts get thrown in, that offensive line is toast. I mean, how many times did we see in both Packers games Nate Davis be lost, Cody Whitehair be lost? And we've seen these guys block before. They're not bums, right? Like, they may not be top of the line, but to me, that's all scheming and coaching and whatever he has going on with what he asked those players to do. So the ineptitude can't be, you can't put a veil over and say, oh, well, he wasn't working with come on, dude. Like, you got to show me some competency from a scheme standpoint that he never, ever did. Because, we've talked about it ad nauseum of, his answer to, an offensive line that maybe he doesn't trust, or Justin, whatever, holding balls long, was always just screens. And it's like, come on, like, there's got to be better coaching than this. So he's out of there. That was the right call. Eberflus, I know a lot of people were very upset with Matt Eberflus being retained. I don't know if it's Stockholm Syndrome. I knew he was going to be back, so I really wasn't upset. And I don't know if I feel this way or if I convince myself to feel this way. But the same thing that you said, Jack, the only clear upgrade, like absolute, you can't even debate it, would have been Jim Harbaugh. Other than that, you would be hiring Ben Johnson or another coordinator who you're hoping could be a good head coach. We have seen coordinators in the past excel as an OC, excel as a DC, excel as a fucking, position coach, and become head coaches and not be that good. So I'm not saying that Ben Johnson wouldn't have been an upgrade or some of the guys wouldn't have been, but there's an element of the unknown that I think as you're building this thing, Ryan Poles didn't want to take. So I'm okay with it as it stands. I would have liked them to pursue Harbaugh a little bit more before that press conference just to, get a little bit, but it is what it is. I don't want to speak out of both sides of my mouth, though, because I feel like I have conflicting thoughts when it comes to this. I think I've had my qualms. Nas, Jack, you certainly both have had your qualms with Eberflus, but at the same time, we see the progress that this defense has made and this culture that he's building. So it's like it's a layered conversation for me. Eberflus, we've seen him get completely outcoached by Matt LaFleur 4 times already. So like there's that element to it, and we've seen him by good offensive coordinators just get unpants, and it's kind of tough to deal with that. But there's this weird thing of, we see the fatal flaws of him blowing 10-point leads with 4 minutes to go, 12-point leads with 2 minutes. We've seen this conservative nature that we're like, we know where this is heading, we know how this ends. But then part of me is like, I also know that in the NFL, you don't get consistent success firing people every 2 years. So it was like, do we have to let this come to a natural conclusion before it moves on? Because I know, Nas, you said like we have moved on from coaches in 2 years, but those were dumpster fires. Those were Mark Trestman completely losing a locker room where Brandon Marshall and Robbie Gould are almost fist fighting, and Jay and so-and-so, and that was crazy. That's not happening yet anyway. So it's like, at what point do you have to be proactive when you're Ryan Poles? And at what point do you just like, all right, let's see this thing totally through to give it a fair shake? That's where I'm conflicted on it. But for this particular year, I was okay with Eberflus being brought back. Nas, I feel like there's some pushback coming my way.
Yeah. Oh, it's coming to both of you. Okay. So I want to clarify before I start pushing back. Okay. So and just let me know if I heard you clearly or not clearly. You're saying the list of available head coaches is not blowing you away for this offseason?
Harbaugh is, yeah.
Me personally, no. Not
Okay.
not a huge fan of the head coaches that are available.
Okay, available head coaches right now: Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel, Ben Johnson,
Vrabel
Jim
would've.
Harbaugh, Dan Quinn, Bobby Slowick, and Dave Canales, all definitely interviewing for head coaches. I would say that's an all-time list. Pete Carroll, also available to coach. All-time list is where I'm at. Like, if there was a year to maybe dump a guy you weren't sure about, this was the year to do it. This was the absolute year to do it, because even the second tier guys on that list, and for me, the second tier guys are the Ben Johnsons and the Bobby Slowicks and the Dave Canales. Those are all play callers. That still helps us if we get Caleb. They're all good play callers. Whether or not they're great head coaches, maybe they could grow into that. We don't know, but I know for a fact they can play call. I would say this was an all-time. I would say when I said that, when I was making my earlier remarks about keeping Eberflus, I was speaking from Poles' perspective. I didn't exactly express my perspective. My perspective is that this is a blunder to not interview and see what these candidates wanted in terms of control, what they had for vision of the franchise. I think that is like, this is an all-time blunder by Poles. I think, and maybe it doesn't prove itself out to be, and I get proven wrong. And if I am, I'll be thankful that I was wrong about this take, 100%. But if Flus is out in the air and he didn't interview any of the dudes I just listed, again, let me list it again: Bill Belichick, Ben Johnson, Jim Harbaugh, Dan Quinn, Bobby Slowick, Dave Canales, Pete Carroll, and Mike Tomlin in a contract here could have been gotten to in a trade. All of which not even explored. That's crazy to me. That's crazy. I think it's an all-time list. We will never see another list with this pedigree of available coaches in our lifetime. We won't see it again.
Vrabel, I forgot about Vrabel. He would have been another one. Harbaugh is of interest. We're buying in on Bill B at this point of his career?
Nope.
Hell yeah. He can
that's what we disagree.
Still.
Yeah, I disagree on that.
Our defense.
We don't need that though.
But that's the same. But that
we do need that. We blew 3 leads of 95%.
Oh no, I mean that's
of course we do.
That's in-game decision making.
We got torn up by the first real quarterback we had played in weeks.
Yeah, but I think for Bill Belichick, you've seen. I see it as more of the same, not necessarily that they're blowing these leads, et cetera, but him as a talent evaluator has clearly passed him by, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But you are, because you're asking him to hire a coordinator to run his offense, and he hasn't been able to do that at all. Not even close. Their offense was fucking horrible for the last 3 years, since Tom Brady left.
That's what scares me.
Their defense could be top 5, and it doesn't matter. Their offense. He can't hire an offensive coordinator.
I think if you're thinking about sticking with Flus or interviewing the best coach of all time, you interview the best coach of all time.
I disagree with that only because of the timing of when this is happening. Like, it's not like this is Bill Belichick entering he's 60 years old. Like, he's leaving the Patriots because it's run its course.
You'd rather have Matt Eberflus over Bill Belichick?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that I would rather have Eberflus over Bill Belichick, but I think where this team is currently at, why would Bill Belichick come to this team? I don't get that. I don't get that one bit.
It's really it. Well, that's a great question. I don't know what they would do to convince him, but that would need to be a conversation.
You know what it feels like? It feels like
just one.
It feels like Brady. It feels like when Brady was available to come to the Bears, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, here we fucking go." And it's like, yeah, but why would Tom Brady come here? He wants to go somewhere where he can win right away. I still think they're building this thing, and I think that's kind of where the Eberflus is lining up. You know what I mean? So
I agree that this is Pole's perspective, that he thinks he's building a certain type of culture, and he's kind of got his guy that he's in lockstep with. I totally agree that that's Pole's perspective. I think it's insane. I think it's clouded judgment.
I'm not going to criticize.
To not interview the list of people I just said, to to be like, oh, have you talked to Jim Harbaugh? It's like, nah, he's the coach at Michigan. Like, and I get Flus is right next to him, but it's like, bro, you didn't even like check. That's crazy.
I think that's a lie. He did some back channeling. There's no way he just didn't inquire about Jim Harbaugh. But but here's the other thing that we have to keep in mind, though. For me, it's going to be a little bit of hindsight. I may feel closer to what you feel, Nas, if Bill B goes somewhere and he has no executive duties as well. If he's just a coach, I have a hard time believing him and Harbaugh both want that. I'm still bought in on Poles. So if them landing somewhere is contingent upon them making crucial draft decisions and other things that a GM normally does outside of just the normal feedback that you would get from a head coach, that working relationship between a GM and a head coach, I don't want either of them.
I am at the point where, Nas, I get what you're saying. I'm close to where you're at in regards to criticizing Poles for just basically saying this whole thing did not work because the offense was broken, and that's why they let go of Luke Getsy. Like, that's very clear. That was their philosophy, though they're still keeping, I believe, the tight ends coach and the offensive line coach, which is interesting. But Matt Eberflus, the defense was a big reason why they lost a lot of those, that they just blew games like that. Like, let's not get it twisted. Matt Eberflus, like I said, I think he should have been fired. And but I do think that from the Poles perspective that we were just talking about, I think he is still probably the most trusted person in that building by Bears fans because of some of the decisions that he's made via trades, via free agency, via drafting, right? Like, that's clear as day. So until he gives us a reason not to trust him, I'm still going to lean towards trusting him. And if he's saying, look, defense did not, we didn't finish well. He admitted that. He wants a team of killers. He wants a team that can step on throats and finish games. And, we've had questions about Matt Eberflus's ability to do that for the last 2 years. But I think that, and he admitted that after the Packers game, I think it was a wake-up call that they're still not where they need to be, not even close. And I think we're all aligned with that. Mm-hmm. It's very likely that he just likes the culture that's being built in the building, how the defense didn't give up on him after some of those brutal losses, after the terrible start they had to the season. And we saw it week 1. The heads were down. Guys looked like they were ready to go home. And they kept playing. So it's very possible that Ryan Poles said, you know what, we're still building. I want to get this culture right. And let's give this thing one more go. I'm going to help him hire an offensive coordinator this year because he was not a part of that when he originally hired Matt Eberflus. There was so many other things going on, and he admitted this. He basically said, coaching's your stuff. I got to figure out the cap. I got to figure out personnel. Let's get this right. So now that it's more lockstep, he's with somebody he already trusts, already knows. Whereas if he did fire Matt Eberflus and had to bring in another, maybe a first-time head coach, Bobby Slowick, Ben Johnson, some of the names you brought up, I think he wouldn't necessarily have that trust or that feel that he does now with a guy that he knows pretty well at this point. So I think there's more to it than just wins and losses. If it was, I would agree that it's absolutely ridiculous that he was not fired. I just think there's more to it based off of the things that Ryan Poles said in that end-of-year press conference.
But see, this is...
Yeah, everything you just said makes sense. That all makes sense to me. Like, the Poles perspective that you just laid out, Jack, it makes total sense to me. I'm just bitter.
Oh, yeah, I feel you.
It's can I envision Matt Eberflus making good game management decision in a tight game in the playoffs with Caleb or Justin? Like, no, I don't, because he can't even do it in gimme regular season situations. So it's just like, I guess my head is fast forwarding to the time where we all acknowledge Flus cannot do this at a super high level, and he's probably just a coordinator. And I like everything you just said made total sense. And I was like, oh yeah, the continuity, the locker room probably would express some sort of interest for, like, they probably went to bat for Flus in the exit interviews, like all sorts of things from Poles' perspective, the information that he's gathering, like it's probably pointing to Eberflus, and it makes sense. It's just like knowing that he is gonna fail when it's really go time just pisses me off, and it hasn't even happened yet.
See, and that's exactly what I mean. Like, well, because that's the foresight that we have right now. Is we've seen these breadcrumbs of failure. I don't know what the right word is, but like we've seen these breadcrumbs, and it's like it's gonna rear its ugly head yet again. Because make no fucking mistake, this is a playoff team next year. You have the number 1 pick, you have the number 9 pick, you have a lot of fucking cap space. You are going to continue to raise the floor of this team and I think you have the right guy for that situation of a floor, because I don't know how much better he makes people, but you're sort of run-of-the-mill, I can coach when there's talent. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what Eberflus is. The defense got better because the talent got better. Like, it's just, when you have talent, it's going to have, you have to be very inept at your job. You have to be like Chip Kelly to have all that talent and not be able to fucking win with it. And I don't think he's that. So, but it's also like, again, this is why part of me feels like maybe we just have to let it come to its natural conclusion, because to be completely fair, on the flip side of that, it's hard to count year 1 for Eberflus. That's, no one wins with that. We saw the breadcrumbs still, but that's tough. Like three wins with that team, that's tough. But there was a lot of improvement. And I know there was the insane, we'll keep referencing that, the insane games that he should not have lost that were, what was the total number? It was like to lose all 3. It was like 0.00003% chance. It's something absurd.
Yeah, it was bad.
But there still was a ton of progress from year 1 to year 2. So part of me is also not being ignorant to NFL circles. If you have to look the rest of the interviewees in the eyes and say, yeah, I just fired this guy who went from 3-14 to 7-10, and when we were on the cusp of the playoffs, if we win a couple of these games, what is my job security going to look like? Like, I feel like there is a lot of that at play, and that's, I mean, I remember listening to podcasts pretty blatantly of former Browns executives when they were firing coaches year after year after year, and they were like, this is a hostile environment. Who can work under that? Like, so that's part of me is like, I have that in the back of my mind as well, is like, to us, that would have made total sense. Get rid of Eberflus, you fucking get Harbaugh, or you even Ben Johnson, whoever, because we see it already. But I do think in the reality of things, it has to come to its own conclusion. Like, we have to actually see it before we know it's going to, even though we know it's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, it's unfortunate. And just like you said, Nas, I hope I'm fucking wrong. I hope that some of these mistakes are just because he is a rookie head coach. This is the first time doing it. Like, you have to learn on the job, and there is no other way to prepare you for this, and he gets better at it. But as it stands right now, I have no faith in a big playoff moment, in a big regular season moment, that Eberflus is the guy to do it. But I think, unfortunately, in the NFL, it has to happen first.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, in regards to kind of where Eberflus currently stands, I think, Nas, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm speaking for you, tell me to shut the fuck up. But what I think your concern is, and I think it's a sentiment that I think is shared by your other sports team, favorite team in Chicago, fandom that we've had you on the podcast talking about before. It's like, it feels like you're just, like with the Bulls, you're just, as a fan, you can see that this team is not going to do anything, right? And you're just like, there's just, we just got to keep going. We got to keep, and it's just like, no, we see it for what it is. Cut your losses, make some changes, admit you were wrong, and let's get this thing moving. I feel like that's kind of where maybe you were coming at for why you're so amped up about Eberflus still being here, because again, like I touched on a little bit earlier, and I know we'll get to it, it feels like we're doing the same thing, and we're entering the same cycle that the Bears have just been trying to break for an entire decade now, where GM comes in, head coach comes in, they get a quarterback, they get fired, quarterback stays, new GM comes in, new head coach comes in, head coach gets fired, GM, quarterback still there, quarterback gone, head coach, GM gone. Like, it feels like if Eberflus does not make the playoffs next year, which should absolutely be the expectation, Frank, he has to go. There is no excuse in year 3, and I get it's very likely they will have a rookie quarterback. But this defense, the improvements that we've seen, if it is legit, which there are still some questions about that based off of who they've played this year, especially at the quarterback position. If that doesn't change, if they don't win games in their division, which this is shaping up to potentially be a pretty good division for the next few years, how do you bring him back? And then you're at the cycle again where if you did bring in Caleb Williams, now Ryan Poles has to find a head coach who may or may not believe in that quarterback, or who did or did not want him. But I think he's going to circumnavigate that with some of the offensive coordinator stuff that, again, I know we'll get to. But if there's anything else, Nas, am I hitting the nail on the head? Am I talking out my ass?
No. You understand me, Jack.
Yeah.
You understand my fury and my just exhaustion from these fucking bullshit franchises that I, for some reason, am allegiant to. It's so stupid.
Can we take a second and just be appreciative that we aren't also White Sox fans? Because my fucking God, if there's incompetence and there's whatever's going on with them. Like,
two Jerry Reinsdorf teams in your lifetime.
I know. My goodness. Fellas, I feel like we've said all that we can. Eberflus, Getsy, any last thoughts before maybe we shift over to the OC conversation?
That was it for me. He better make the fucking playoffs. Let's just say that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I obviously the moves, depend on who they get and what they say, but I'm right there with you. I mean, because they should have made it this year, if we're being honest. 3 extra wins. I mean, you're talking a total swing between 10-7 and 7-10 with those 3 losses. So,
they may have won they might have won a fucking playoff game if they made it, if I'm being honest with you.
I mean, these teams aren't daunting. I mean,
if they got off to a quick start.
Yeah.
Not a lot of these teams were showing a lot of grit.
Come on, let's be real.
The tackling last night by the Eagles was an absolute joke. Also, that OC, he's also going because he was dialing up the Getsy playbook. It's like they had never seen a blitz before. Like, I felt like I was going back in time. It's like, they're blitzing. There's nothing we can do. What are we gonna do? Oh, get the ball.
We're just having those textings that they, you know what? They didn't have Tyson Bagent on their team. That's why they fucking lost.
Listen, all right, fellas. So the OC search is in full effect. Some of the names that we've heard already are Slowick. We've heard Greg Roman. Who was the other? There was another pretty prominent.
We have
Clint Kubiak.
So Clint Kubiak, they had January 10th, which was the opening of the interview process. They interviewed Seahawks OC Shane Waldron. The 49ers passing game coordinator Clint Kubiak. They also interviewed Kentucky offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Liam Cohen. They interviewed Seahawks quarterbacks coach Greg Olson, and they also interviewed, as Frank just mentioned, former Baltimore Ravens OC Greg Roman. So those are the 5 names that they have interviewed right now.
I don't even know how I want to start this. What is who? If you're Ryan Poles right now, you make the choice. All 5 of them want to be here. They're waiting on your answer. Nas, who are you picking?
I'm taking Waldron. I think. He's definitely got enough experience where I feel comfortable. He's worked with different quarterbacks in successful offenses, and he's been a play caller, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like he's just checking it out. Like, it'll be a professional scenario for Caleb to walk into the door, someone who knows what he's doing.
Yeah, a guy who I'm going to be a little bit different just because I want to be different. But so interviewing Greg Olson, I think, caught a lot of people's attention because of his age. I think he's like 60, which isn't obviously super old, but he has a ton of experience just coaching in general. He's coached with the Bears. That's where he got his nope, that's not where he started, but he was with the Bears in 2003 as their quarterbacks coach with such names as Cordell Stewart, Chris Chandler, and Rex Grossman. Such a good list. That's right there.
My childhood right there, baby. I've injected in my veins.
He worked with the Lions. He worked with the Rams, the Buccaneers, Jacksonville. He's been in Oakland with the Rams. He's been with the Rams multiple times. And then obviously being the Seahawks quarterbacks coach this previous. So what I think could happen is I think that interview could have basically just been, hey, we want to hire Waldron as our OC. Would you come with him to be the quarterbacks coach of the Bears? I think that that could be like the nice little tag team, which I would be super happy about. The turnaround for Geno Smith was huge. Like, and Waldron was a huge part of that. So I would be very excited to see what he could do. He's also only 44. It kind of goes back a little bit to what I was talking about. If Eberflus goes, it's very possible that the Bears just promote him to head coach. I think I'd be okay with that. Very familiar with the rookie quarterback that they drafted. Big reason why the offense is successful and modern. Top 5, top 15, maybe. But I think I'm kind of leaning more towards Clint Kubiak at this point. Another guy who has some play calling experience. I think he was with Kirk Cousins in 2021 as the Vikings play caller when Kirk Cousins had one of his best seasons. I think it was the first, maybe second time he was a Pro Bowler, which, you know, put stock into that how much you want. But still, I think he threw like 33 touchdowns, 7 picks. It's a good season for Kirk Cousins. So I think Clint Kubiak comes, obviously his dad, very well respected coach, comes off of the Shanahan tree. He's been spending, you know, obviously learning from Kyle Shanahan. I think anytime you can get a guy off that tree is a win. So I think I'd go Clint Kubiak at this point.
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay with Clint. I'm okay with Waldron. The only one that I've had qualms about is Greg Roman. I can't. And it's not. I understand he was the OC when Lamar won MVP, but the one thing that remains, two things, is you listen to the way receivers speak about that. Des Bryant was very vocal. He spent a year there. Hollywood Brown, after year 2, wanted out. I think he played a third year there and was like, okay, dude, I'm fucking done. I can't do this. I'm sure there are other things that Ravens fans could point to. These are just things that I've seen, you know, come about over the years. And then someone sort of put it all in one thread, and I remembered a lot of it. And it's Lamar. While I think that offense was tailor-made for him, I think it was good for him then, and it never advanced to what he is now. I'm blanking on who Munkin. Ted Munkin is their OC now. Who you're like, okay, this is what I mean. Lamar is a more advanced passer than what Greg Roman was capable or thought about. But to me, it didn't matter if, you know, Greg Roman, either the system couldn't make Lamar shine this way, or if he didn't think so, because either way, that's a knock on you. Like, how do you look at Lamar and say, oh no, you're still like just the run first guy, like you're the same dude from college, from Louisville? Like, no, like it's we know, you know what you have in him just by looking at him play. So he's the guy that I would be very upset about. But I wanted to ask you guys this specifically about Greg Roman. If the Bears hire Greg Roman, do you think that's tipping their hand that they're going to keep Justin Fields? Because I do think that would be the best OC if you keep Fields, because we've seen that work in some capacity. Or do you think they would think he'd be good for Caleb?
Nas, do you want to go first?
You can go first. Go ahead.
Frank, I get what you're saying in regards to like why that would be an indicator for Justin Fields. I don't disagree that it would probably make me think Justin is staying, and maybe because Caleb and Drake May are not those types of prospects that Lamar and Justin Fields were with those types of skill sets. Jaden Daniels, you could maybe make the argument, would probably fit that offense a little bit better. So potentially you go Marv at number 1, then get Jaden Daniels. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm not going to lie, Frank. I think Greg Roman would be the worst possible option for Justin Fields at this point because of the development stuff that you were just talking about. Yeah, sure, he can call a run game. Justin's already good at doing that. Where they would need him to develop is in the passing game. And that didn't happen for Lamar really until he left. And so I think it would be by far the worst hire of these names that have been brought up.
Yeah. If we hire Greg Roman, I'm boycotting the season. What's funny is we were chatting and I'm like giving you the devil's advocate version of like, yeah, let's like, Greg's not the worst idea, but if he is the Bears OC, I'm out.
Yeah.
I would rather watch the rest of the slate of games every Sunday than watch that shit.
So
no way.
The Bears tweet tomorrow, 9:03 a.m. The finalists for our OC position are Greg Roman and Frank Reich. What are the boys thinking?
I am so happy. I am so happy that as of right now, we have not seen an interview request made or an interview just like notice of fucking Frank Reich. I can't do Frank Reich.
Dude,
if we hire Frank Reich, Flus will be out of a job by week 6.
Oh yeah,
because we'll be 1-4 going into that week.
Dude,
it'll be absurd.
Speaking of Frank Reich, I feel a little bad for him. You guys seen that clip that went around where after he got his first win with Carolina? That's super fucking cringy. Like
awkward. Yeah.
Oh, I felt
this one means a lot. Yeah.
I know, and it's like it was very clear he did not have that locker room at all. I felt so awful. I get he was doing a bad job, but like that hurt me
I would be okay. I would be okay with Reich as like maybe like an offensive analyst or like a senior analyst guy. Like if they bring in Clint Kubiak, right, a younger guy, a guy who has play calling experience, but maybe like not that much. If they wanted to bring Reich in as like a guy just to be there to give him some advice, like I would be cool with that, because I do think the Frank Reich stuff is a little bit overblown, especially because I know it's easy to say, well, you know, he got fired. Of course he wanted CJ Stroud. Look how good CJ Stroud. Like, I think based off of profile of what Frank Reich has liked in the past, CJ Stroud was a much better fit for the offense he liked to run than Bryce Young. So I buy
he was definitely pushing for him.
Especially with the psycho owner who's throwing water on other fans and shit. Like, come on. Any story you want to tell me about that owner, I'd absolutely fucking buy at this point. But as an OC trying to build something with a young quarterback, I'm out on Frank Reich. I can't do Frank Reich.
I agree. Yeah. No, I totally agree.
We should bring Mike Singletary back into this organization.
Dude, can I also say though, with that being said, I am so happy that the sort of triannual cycle of we'll just bring back the coach and bring Singletary. I haven't seen any of that, which is hopefully means we're past it, because every time there's any sort of vacancy, these fucking bozo 85 Bears fans just come out of the woodworks and like want to hire everyone from that either played or coached then. I hope that's a sign that we're past it, and that because people were banging on the table for Harbaugh, totally get it. Let's fucking, let's be upset about that. Let's not be upset that Mike Ditka isn't coming back. Like it's ridiculous. All right, fellas, we touched coaches. Do we move on to the?
Hold on. Come on, touch coaches. Come on, what are you doing?
Okay, Jack, get your fucking head out of the gutter.
Touch on, please. Keep it clean.
I touched on some coaches, and I liked what I felt. Do we dabble into some number one pick, Justin Fields, Caleb Williams stuff before we get out of here? Or is there anything else we want to touch on before we get there?
I think we should establish firmly where each three of us currently stand on the Justin Fields versus Caleb Williams. Or, you know what? I'm going to throw out the Caleb Williams side. Just Justin Fields versus rookie quarterback, because it's still very possible, Frank, that you're a big Drake May guy, and I just don't know it. You just won't admit to it.
Yep.
Nas, you could be Bo Nix. You could be Bo Nix in the second round type guy. I don't know. They don't even have a second round pick, but they very well could. They trade it back.
They overpaid for Sweat. That's why they can't get JJ McCarthy in the second.
That pick is like, what is it now? Like 39 or something like that? 39, 42, something like that.
I don't even know. Can I want to say something, and I'll throw it to you guys, because this isn't what I'm going to say isn't indicative of where I think they're going to happen or what I want to happen. The only place that I find myself upset at is I saw this organization from coaching staff top to bottom, absolutely fail one of the most physically talented quarterbacks I've ever seen in a Bears uniform. I think the only other one in our lifetime that you can say was more physically talented was probably Jay, just because of the throws, just his arm talent itself. And I don't. So when we have these conversations, because they're going to happen a lot, it's unavoidable. I'm going to do my damnedest to not down Justin at any point. Because if I had to splice the sort of failures of what happened, the majority of it just isn't on him. Like, if you expected any rookie quarterback, let alone the fourth one taken, that had flaws coming out, to just be the savior and not need coaching and not need, any sort of development to just come in and save your franchise, you're a bozo and you, like, go watch fucking squash or something. I don't know. But that's where I'm upset, is that we're leaving this situation, probably leaving this situation, with really still not knowing what Justin is. We couldn't get competency around him coaching-wise because he came in with Matt Nagy, who was clearly gone after the year. And then he gets Luke Getsy for 2 more years, who, again, no matter where you, Nas, or where you, Jack, or where anyone listening stands, we can all fucking agree that Luke Getsy was awful at his job. Again, forget what you think about Justin Fields, but it's like, that's where I'm upset. And it's not because, I'm just some big Justin guy. Like, I liked him in college, and I scouted him. I thought he was the second best behind Trevor Lawrence. I liked him as a prospect. But it's because we would be in such a drastically different conversation right now if Justin had gotten developed and we were talking like, is this guy like top 12 right now? We wouldn't even be discussing quarterback. We would be discussing the fucking 3 firsts that we could get and then go from there. But he didn't have a chance. There just was no chance for that. So, I mean, because of the poor OC hire and potentially a head coach hire probably, but they're handcuffed into probably moving on from him. And I get we don't want to look too much at the past, but is that not upsetting to the both of you that again another quarterback has been failed by the organization? And again, it's not like but let me say this too before I pass it. It's not even that, I think he would have been great and a Hall of Famer if he just had the right tutelage. He could have. I would rather have a situation of closure and he just sucked than be where we're at. Why is it always this? Why is it always? Is it the caller? Does he suck? Is he really good? I still see potential. He's still physically talented. Like, we can't ever just have like, nope, he just didn't fit. Like, he had the right guys around him and he clearly wasn't making the throws. He was inaccurate. He was this. We just get glimpses because of raw talent and nothing else. That's where I'm at with that on that side of the coin.
Yeah. Nas, do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think it breaks for a lot of guys that way, to be honest. Like, I think there have been plenty of first rounders that have shown as many flashes as Justin has, and the organization has just straight up failed them. And who knows if they had a QB whisperer with them, who knows how they would have turned out. Same thing with Justin. I just love Justin, the dude.
Mm-hmm.
So like, for me, it sucks that like I'm rooting for Caleb, which is what my stance is, because I don't think Caleb is ruinable. That's how strongly I feel.
Yeah.
Wow. I think he can supersede any bad coaching that comes his way. Truly. I mean, within reason. Like, if Greg Roman rolled up in here and we get Caleb, like, that would be the worst fit I could imagine. But like, if someone was like on the same page to some degree with Caleb, I think he's gonna play really well. And I'm just looking at history tells us he's gonna be the guy. Like, you go down, like, and Jack, we can hit it to you, and then we can kind of review, like, if we want to look at recent history of recent QBs that have been taken at number 1 over the last 20 years. The hit rate is obviously higher than at drafting a QB at any other number.
Right.
So it's like, we can say with like not absolute certainty, but we can say like, this guy's gonna be good. He's unanimously the number 1 guy in my mind.
Yeah, Frank, to answer your question, yeah, absolutely. I'm mad that they just completely wasted a good quarterback prospect based off of just some really questionable decisions. I think it was very clear that Matt Nagy did not want Justin Fields, just based off of the way that he kept trying to do things with different styles of quarterbacking. He was so obsessed with his system working. He thought it was anyone could run it, and he just needed the right quarterback. I just don't think he wanted Justin Fields. And I think the same can be said for Luke Getsy. I think Luke Getsy saw an opportunity to call plays for the first time in a situation that maybe he wasn't getting opportunities elsewhere. Kind because again, what he wanted to do just did not mesh with what Justin Fields could do or wanted to do himself. Clearly, he was not in love. Like I can't get past. There was obviously some sort of overall disconnect with Luke Getsy and the rest of the staff and maybe even the front office based off of the way he was talking about that offense going into the offseason or in the offseason going into this upcoming season, where they're going to build it through the run. They have these 3 running backs. They have, Donta Foreman. They have Khalil Herbert. They have Roschon Johnson. They're going to do all these different and still was not able to get an identity for this offense built out. It was just random for random's sake. Yeah, he could script a good first quarter, a good first drive, but the inability to adapt to what was happening was ultimately his downfall. And as unfortunate as it was that Justin got hurt when he did, because he was playing pretty well, except in that Vikings game when he did get hurt, we did get to see Luke Getsy with another quarterback who he was in love with Tyson Bates. I'm not kidding. Like I think that there is a possibility that if Luke Getsy had not been able to call his offense with another quarterback running it, I think there is a slight possibility that he may have gotten another chance. I'm not kidding.
I mean, you may not be wrong, but my God, would that have been an atrocious mistake? Because again, I don't see how you can objectively look at what he was doing scheme wise and say, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing. I mean,
with that three that what was it, that like trips personnel of just like backups to the backups was just. How does that happen in a game against the Packers? And that's why people think he was a Green Bay plant. Frank included. Big conspiracy guy.
You said whatever that someone said about
Green Bay flat, or is it round?
I've never seen it from space. I don't know. But I mean, the same thing you said about David Tepper. Like, you tell me anything about Luke Getsy, I'll fucking believe it. He may have been on Epstein's Island, for all I know. I don't know. I don't know nothing about
Robert Tonyan just happened to drop those passes.
He's another plant too, probably. Yeah, that was a fucking dime against the Packers, so he should have caught that touchdown. Anyway, so. Oh, Jack, were you done?
No, I was just gonna say, to the point of Justin Fields, it is unfortunate that it has kind of sort of closed, come to a close at this point. But, I let me throw this at you actually, because you talked about how Greg Roman could be potentially a signifier of them wanting to keep Justin Fields. The more I was kind of thinking about it, doesn't it almost feel like if Shane Waldron is the pick, that's kind of maybe the route they go with his ability that he showed of how he was able to turn around Geno Smith?
I don't know, because the things that Geno was doing in that offense,
I don't necessarily believe that, by the way.
I know. I
wanted to throw it out there.
Right, just throwing it.
Because of who he was able to develop as a quarterback. Like that turnaround should not just be ignored. Like, that's huge what he was able to do.
Greg Roman to me would be tipping the hand. Waldron wouldn't, but I think it wouldn't because Caleb could do exactly what Geno does, those off-platform throws, the throwing on the run. Like I think Justin can too, but with Caleb's quick release, he can do all of that and probably better even at this point being a rookie than Geno could, even though Geno made some pretty insane throws the last couple of years. So I don't think so. Nas, do you feel any different? You're still muted.
Yeah. One Waldron point I do want to make is, you know who the QB coach and the passing game coordinator was last year in Seattle, right? It was Dave Canales, the current offensive coordinator of the Bucs.
Interesting.
So I would be hesitant to credit all of Geno's turnaround with just Shane, because Dave has now been credited with contributing to 2 turnarows and possibly 2 comeback players of the year and back-to-back seasons. So it's like
DeMar Hamlin didn't play quarterback.
That was a good joke.
That's good.
That was a good one. No, that's fair though. That's fair. So I think where I stand on it right now is I'm not completely out on keeping Justin. Because and it's not because of Justin versus Caleb. It's that you can get a fucking. I mean, you may fuck around and get 4 firsts. I mean, you don't. Who knows? And the reason why I feel that way is because I've dove into Caleb's tape now that the Bears season's over, had some more time. One of the reasons throughout the season where I was like, I don't know. I saw the highlight tapes. One, highlight tapes are highlight tapes. You could probably make one of me that looks fucking solid. Like, what do we do? Like, they're highlights. But all of them were, not sort of backyard football, scrambling around, holding the ball a long time. It's like, I like that you have that skill set. That's needed in the NFL too. But like, show me the on time, boy, did I dive in and did I see what I wanted to see with Caleb. Not only just, the on time throws, I saw him, and I don't know if I've seen this from a prospect since Andrew Luck, and I didn't even know what I was seeing then. This is like hindsight, being able to dissect a little bit better than when I was younger. His ability to manipulate the pocket, his ability to like evade tackles and move within the pocket, but not completely take yourself out of a play to keep your eyes downfield and make throws to your second and third reads. That's some advanced shit, man. It's some advanced, and now I don't think it's going to be advanced per NFL standard. I'm talking like advanced per prospect standards, because you're not seeing Drake May do that. You're not seeing an LSU quarterback do that. You're certainly not seeing any of the other dudes do it. And I dive in there. So like, that's why that's why I prefaced with the Justin thing. Justin is not a bum. You go on like Reddit and you go certain places, people talk about him like he's just some awful quarterback. If we were to get like fucking 5 firsts, a starter, I'm cool with rolling with Justin if you get a big enough return for it. But man, it's hard to not want Caleb. It's very, very hard to not want and see what he can do, because some of the things that he does is the antithesis of Justin, and some of the things that we haven't seen Justin necessarily progress in. They both hold the ball a decent amount. But again, I'm okay. I don't care what your name is, who your prospect. I'm okay with the aggression. I'm okay with the big play making, or wanting to make that big play. Because again, I'm just of the ilk. You can rein that in. You can't make Derek Carr become more aggressive. It just is what it is. Like, it's a mindset thing. I'd rather have that and just temper it versus try to bring the dog out of someone that just isn't there. So that doesn't scare me away. But that quick release, dude, and I'm watching another quarter. I mean, watch his film and then watch Steve Young and then watch Dan Marino. I'm not trying to give this kid astronomical, expectations, but just look at the similarities there. I didn't get that. And I love Justin coming out of college. I liked his film a lot, but I didn't get that. That's different. It's a different level of shit. So rounding it out, you also have to look at it from Ryan Poles' standpoint. Because what do we know about Justin right now? Supreme athlete, really good arm talent. No one's doubting the actual arm talent itself, but we also know he's inconsistent and he hasn't progressed as much as you would like in 3 years. And again, you can splice up the blame however you want to splice it, but this is the reality of the situation. It would be unprecedented for Ryan Poles to stick with a guy who he did not draft, who he hasn't seen develop again, whether it's his fault or not, and you have the number 1 pick in a potentially generational draft prospect. So I don't see, unless again you're taught like I don't know what someone would have to give up to even make it worth your time.
I don't really think there's an offer. I think you have to do this because having a generational guy erases the need for all that top tier draft equity.
Yeah.
To be honest, like you could not make an offer for CJ Stroud today that Houston would say yes to.
Oh no.
Right. So and make no mistake about it, Caleb is ours. We have the number 1 pick. I hold him in the same regard. There's not an offer you can make me. Because just like watching this weekend, watching CJ in the Texans game, watching Stafford in the Rams game, there are just simply throws that they make. And granted, their O-lines give them the ability to make some of these throws. Maybe not Stafford as much. He took a fucking beating on Saturday and was still dropping dimes in a fashion that there was a throw to the right sideline, the throw where he hit his hand into that dude's helmet and then had to get bracelet. That throw to the right sideline, I respect Justin's arm strength. He does not have the accuracy to pull a throw like that off. He just doesn't. And having that in your back pocket in Caleb, who I think has just as strong an arm as Justin with effortless accuracy, it's just like I think it's a no-brainer. I'm at the point where you can't offer anything
Nas,
to convince me like we're dipping out.
Jack, before you go, I just slight pushback. I think Caleb's arm is a little bit stronger, man. His film is impressive, dude. His film is impressive.
He just flicks the wrist and it goes across the entire field. It's crazy.
I know, but again, I urge anyone, and I'm sorry, Jack, I'm not trying to steal your time. I urge anyone who's only seen that same Twitter highlight film that is like, it's impressive still, but it's again like we saw other, you see people run around like that's not
it's college
because you're not right. You're not playing NFL talent, so I get how you can come away from that and be like, this is the generational guy. Watch his actual film. And if you don't have the ability to get it or break it down, watch like other guys who are breaking it down and explaining it to you. I still do that. I'm no fucking expert. I watch the QB school and I watch some of these guys and I try to find the raw film to see if I can see what they're seeing as well before I watch them. But it's like, I do that, but like watch the way he manipulates the pocket. Watch the way he gets through his reads. Watch the way he calls out, he diagnoses pre-snap blitzes. Now, there's going to be things that NFL defenses throw at him that he's never seen before, and he's going to have to show us the ability to adjust. That's everybody. But the raw thing that you're dealing with there, I hate even saying this. I fucking love Justin so much, dude. I think he's going to go somewhere. I think he's going to be really good. I think the floor in year one is probably higher right now than where Justin is, but I also think, even if that's not true, the ceiling. Caleb's ceiling is top 5. I think Justin's is like fringe top 10, which may not be good enough to win you a Super Bowl because of. You can win with maybe, but because of, it's a no-go. I mean, you're looking at like Jared Goff. That's probably what Jared Goff is.
Yeah, I mean, how many playoff teams currently or that have played this week would take Caleb Williams over their starting quarterback? It's probably a pretty good amount, and I think that speaks to the level of prospect that he is. Just a couple things. Number one, told you, Jalen Hurts. Fraud. Justin Fields, always better than him. Never doubted it for a second, baby. Number two, the Caleb Williams not wanting to be a Bear thing is just stop with that narrative, please. It's not true. The whole, well, he wants to go to a good situation. I'm sorry. What top 5 team, top 6 team, top 10 team is a quote unquote good situation for him to currently fall into? The Bears have one of the best rosters in this top 10 draft right now. Obviously, this isn't even their pick. So I just think there's a strong support system like we talked about. There's already a number 1 receiver, like not even like a true number 1. Let's not get it twisted. A very good offensive line that is going to be upgraded, whether it's free agency or draft. I think there's a lot to like about this situation that he's falling into. One thing that I know a lot of Caleb Williams detractors like to point to and sort of where the train fell off this year was that Notre Dame game when he wasn't very good. But if you watch that game, if you go back and actually watch that, there were still some throws that he was making where it's like, God damn, man, like that's good shit. The after the Notre Dame game, these are just some of his numbers. 66% completion percentage, 1,600 yards, 8.5 yards per attempt, 7 touchdowns, 1 interception, 17 quote unquote big time throws, which I believe is PFF's data, an 86.4 passing grade, 135 rushing yards with 5 touchdowns against teams like Utah, Cal, Washington, Oregon, and UCLA, which are just, those are some really good defenses in there. Nas, I know you were a big fan of the Pac-12 this year. I just think Caleb, you watch Drake May, who is quote unquote, people are saying he's the next best prospect. He could even be the number 1 pick. Just the difference in level between those two in terms of the types of throws, the release that Caleb has is much more suited, I think, for the NFL and what Bears fans have been begging for. Like, Drake May is a lot closer to Justin Fields than I think people actually realize in terms of release, like with the slow delivery, and obviously not as good as an athlete as Justin Fields. Caleb is like, when he throws the ball deep, I mean, that thing is still going. Like, he is, I would be surprised if someone could find him throwing an underthrown ball when he goes deep. It doesn't happen. It's ridiculous. Some of the throws he's able to make on the run from different platforms, like you were talking about, some of the arm angle stuff, I mean, it's just it's good stuff. I don't know how you watch Caleb Williams understanding sort of where that USC's best receiver was Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son. He's like projected as like a 4th or 5th round pick this year in the draft. Like,
Yep.
It's not, he doesn't have these top, he did not have a Jordan Addison where he was really going off, in his Heisman year. And I think there is a lot to that. The offensive line was really bad. That defense was absolutely fucking atrocious. But if you watch what Caleb Williams was able to do still with some of those things impacting him, I just don't know how you take that number 1 pick and trade back regardless. Yep. Like, I don't know. I don't know how you do it.
And I would say this too, and I don't know if you two feel differently. If Caleb wasn't in this draft and we were talking about Drake May or Justin, I would be trading this pick. That's how big of because at this point, I'm taking 2 more years to Justin over Drake. I don't see it with May. As a matter of fact, LSU, Jaden Daniels, LSU, yeah. I think he's better than Drake May. I think Drake May is closer to the Bo Nixes and that tier. I don't know what's catapulting this kid to number 2. I just don't, and I don't feel Zach Wilson about him. Jack, how I felt about Zach Wilson in that draft process. I don't feel that, but you can't, people are talking about 1A and 1B. Maybe it's just because of the height of where I think Caleb is comparatively. So maybe I'd feel differently if Caleb didn't exist and it was like, oh, here's May and here's the other guys. But he's much, much closer to them than he is to Caleb. Like, there's no way. There's no way.
If Caleb Williams wasn't listed as 6'1", if he had the size of Drake May, it wouldn't be close.
But it's there's this. Maybe you're right, because I do think some people have this weird thing. It was like the look of a quarterback. Because Drake May, if you just like put them side by side and never saw their film, you'd be like, that guy's a quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, you like just the stature that. So
that's where the Herbert stuff is coming, because he looks like Justin Herbert.
He's built that way.
Except if you actually watch, like, if you want to watch highlight tape, just do it with Justin Herbert side by side with Drake May, and they won't look anything alike.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, Herbert's a different category of athlete compared to Drake.
It's not even close.
Dude, yeah, it's just like I don't really know where it's coming from. I think a lot of it is the look. It's like, this guy just looks like a pro level quarterback, doesn't he? It's just like, I guess, but like when you throw on the film, it's not close.
Well, and then I mean, we saw the same thing with Mitch Trubisky and Deshaun Watson. Remember the skinny ankles, and is he too slim? And it was like, dude, you watch these guys. There's a clear difference between I get Mitch had the build, he looked like but I think we're past that. We're past the
oh my God
measurable type of thing. So the last thing for me, and obviously y'all can touch on whatever before we get out of here. This is, and honestly, I think I'm adopting this philosophy because I do think people, us included, look at flaws too much, particularly when it comes to quarterbacks. But this is, I don't know when this was, but someone talked to Ryan Poles about his scouting process because he was a part of the team that scouted and drafted Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. And he said that the lessons that he learned from the Mahomes experience was he wants to know what a quarterback can do. This is a direct quote. That was such a big thing with us and Patrick, meaning Mahomes. A lot of players have flaws, and sometimes as scouts and evaluators, we get stuck on the flaws and ignore what a player can do. What Patrick could do was make plays that a lot of people just can't. Were there some flaws in terms of his technique and fundamentals? Yes, but those things can be coached. So he is of the mindset of what can he actually do versus what he can't do. And I almost feel like if you're scouting, if you had that mindset, you list the things like what they can do and list what they cannot or what needs to be worked on. That list for Caleb on the can is probably like quintuple, if not higher, than the one things that he can't or needs to improve on. Because even from a footwork standpoint, I didn't see, and now it's going to be different from offense to offense, but just the ability for the lower body to agree with what was happening with the upper body, it's almost textbook. It's fucking phenomenal. His feet were always in a position to release the ball. And that was one thing that Alex Smith was really good at teaching. He did that little series or whatever. Like, it's tough to not like Caleb, man. And again, I hate it. I think we all do. I think we all hate it because we like Justin as the person. We liked him as a prospect. We still think he can succeed elsewhere. But in this position, man, you can't not go with Caleb.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at as a Bears fan. Sucks that it didn't work out with Justin, but you're in a position to make it work. Like, again, the ideal scenario was that Justin was good, was an all-pro, Pro Bowl quarterback, and you get the number 1 pick from the Panthers, and you can use it however you want.
Oh, right.
You
exactly.
can use it, that's ideal, but it didn't work out. And I think you have to go Caleb. One last thing that the last thing I wanted to bring up, it just overall for this week's episode is just the hindsight stuff with CJ Stroud and Bears fans needs to fucking stop.
Oh, I know.
Let's be very clear that it was never an option for them to draft a quarterback. Honestly, I think if this was last year, I think maybe they do pass on Caleb Williams, only regardless of talent, just because of where Justin Fields was coming off of his second season. You still need it. You have so many holes on that roster last year. And let's say CJ Stroud is the first overall pick. He doesn't have Bobby Slowick. He has Luke Getsy. He doesn't have Darnell Wright starting at right tackle. He doesn't have DJ Moore. His best wide receiver probably would have been Darnell Wright and Chase Claypool. Those two would have been his starters right there. Like, he doesn't they don't have the extra pick this year. They don't have the extra second next year. They don't have
Tyreek Stevenson, who's a clear starter at court. Like, this is not the same team with CJ Stroud. Now, the point I think people are getting, excited about, and I think this is why they should draft Caleb, because you can have the best roster in the world but not have a quarterback and your team sucks ass. But now they have this incredible team. Well, not incredible, but a good base to build this team around, and can now get the best quarterback, who CJ Stroud was my QB1 last year. You can go back on the pod and listen to that. I would put him as 2 behind Caleb Williams in terms of prospects. So yes. I think they're getting a better quarterback with a better roster. So the hindsight shit with Stroud needs to stop, because it wouldn't have happened with Luke Getsy anyways.
100%.
Let's be realistic.
Couldn't agree more.
Naz, any last words from you?
I think Justin and Bill Belichick are gonna have a great time in Atlanta.
Oh man, that would be awesome.
He's gonna show them how to hold on to the fucking ball, and they're gonna ball out in the NFC South.
With Josh McDaniels as the OC? You think that's happening?
Maybe.
Come on.
Maybe.
No, hey, Josh McDaniels dialed up some good shit for Jacoby Brissett his rookie year when would Brady get hurt or was he suspended? It was one or the other. Like he's worked with. I know we hate McDaniels.
I think Josh can coach quarterback.
Yep. Same.
His last 3 quarterbacks have been Cam Newton, Mac Jones, and fucking Derek Carr and Jimmy Garoppolo. The list of guys he's had, it's hard to produce offense with those guys.
I gotcha.
Yeah, no, that
well, this has been a fun episode.
This has been
good. Yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm excited. It's been a slower offseason. I'm not sure how much the coaching changes that they've made. The rules to coaching has really sort of changed how this process is going. I feel like it's definitely a little bit slower this year than years past. But I'm excited. I like the names we've seen. There's maybe 3 out of the 5 names that I've liked. 2 out of the 5. The other one being Liam Cohen. In case I don't think we touched on him much at all. I would not be feeling that one.
What do you guys think? Lovey back as DC?
I hope not.
No, thank you. Because then you get the fans just hoping that he takes over.
Yeah.
We go through that cycle again of Mike Singletary and all that nonsense again. Jay Cutler is OC. Can we get that?
Well,
that would be gross.
Threw up in my mouth.
That would be horrendous.
Yeah, that'd be
all right, fellas.
All right.
This
all right, boys.
This was a good one. It was a fun one. I think we're in the space now where we can be really creative. Some of the we'll obviously discuss offline, but some of the things that I have in mind are even though we don't want it to happen, let's explore what trades could be for the number 1 pick. Let's sort of go to the trade simulators and see what could be offered. And again, we wouldn't necessarily accept it, but for content's sake, I think that could be really fun conversations. Obviously, once the OC gets hired, we'll have a lot to talk about there. Free agency starting up. I think next week we can touch some playoffs too. There was just so much to talk about strictly Bears related this go around that it was a no-go. But yeah, I mean, we're in exciting times, man. It's exciting. I get the season didn't end the way that we all wanted it to. This, I think, in my life is the most optimistic I've ever been about the Bears franchise. And in Bears fashion, you keep Eberflus, so there's sprinkles of like, what the fuck? But listen, there's a bright future here in Chicago. Caleb Williams is going 2-0 against the Packers next year. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. Like, share, subscribe everywhere. If we're not on a platform that you enjoy, let us know and we will get that up there. Jack, appreciate you for joining. Nas, appreciate you for joining, and I will catch y'all later.